So you joined me today at the wheel of a 2005 Subaru Legacy 2.5 SE. Let's take it for a drive. Cool is a funny sort of thing, really, isn't it? Some cars are just so intent on being incredibly cool that they just kind of miss the mark and become a bit naff. Other cars are just so mundane, they're never going to be cool no matter what you do to them. And others, it's kind of like the Crocodile Dundee of the car world. They're sort of rugged, tough, just don't give a damn what anyone thinks, really. And that kind of rugged toughness and practicality just makes them cool in their own way. Step up, Subaru Legacy. Under that unassuming face is the engine and framework of the Impreza, a world rally car, but in a pillarless coupe style estate car. And four-wheel drive. How's this not cool? So if you're the kind of person who needs a family hauler or a practical wagon, but just finds the four rings on the front of a car maybe are just a little bit meh, this is kind of the car for you, because there's no pretension, no messing around, just a solid, amazingly tough car. This car is actually riding a little bit high, as it's got Outback shock absorbers on it rather than Legacy shock absorbers, so it should be sitting a little closer to the ground, but we'll gloss over that for today. And the styling on this generation has progressed a little from the previous one, which was very square and boxy. This is a little bit more flowing, a bit more interesting, lots more curves, and actually quite a few little indents and crevices going on, and these kind of sycamore leaf shaped headlights which actually bulge out around the projector lens, which I'd never really noticed before today. So this is a mid-size estate car, so it's kind of BMW 3 Series, Audi A4 estate kind of territory, but without any kind of pretensions as to what kind of statement you're making to the world about yourself with this car. Or maybe it is. Maybe you're saying, I'm a very practical person, I can do anything I want, whenever I want, because I've got a four-wheel drive. And it is four-wheel drive. Both ends of the car are driven by what is quite importantly, interestingly, under this bonnet, the Boxer Flat 4. Let's take a look at that. Now under here sits the Boxer Flat 4 engine. An old-fashioned stick. Now the list of other cars which use Boxer engines is fairly short, but is quite illustrious. Well, first of all, obviously you've got other Subarus, Imprezas for example, then you've got the Porsches, like 911, and Alphas. The old Boxer that I used in the 33, the 145, and other things like that. So it's a short but impressive list to be on. This does give a couple of handy little traits. First of all, it's very flat, so it's mounted very low, which means the centre of gravity in the car is right down at the bottom, so cornering handling is much improved from the positioning of it. Although with the gearbox behind it leading into the transfer case for the four-wheel drive, it does put slightly ahead of the front axle. And secondly, it gives that totally unique sound. Now this engine is the EJ25, and I know it's an EJ25 because it says so just there. And in 2003, when this car was launched, this won the International Engine of the Year in Automobile magazine in America. This motor came in three flavours. There's the 2 litre, the 2.5 and the 3 litre. This is the 2.5 litre one, which is sitting nicely in the middle there. And that means that for a 2005 car like this, it makes 163 horsepower. Later on in 2007, when the car got a facelift, it went up to 175 horsepower. That also gives 226 Newton meters of torque, which is good for 0 to 60 in 9.3 seconds, and a top speed of 128. Well, the boot on one of these things is virtually the same size in terms of litres as a BMW 3 Series. It's 459 litres with the seats up and 1389 when you fold the seats down. The difference is, of course, that the load lip is completely flat, it's very wide, but it's not a very deep boot. Hang on, let me climb out and show you. It's great for loading in a body. If you've got a struggling victim, they will go straight in here, no problem at all. They're not going to fall down and you've not got a narrow aperture. But the reason I actually didn't buy one of these cars myself when I was looking at one not so long ago is the fact that this here is the total height of your boot, and some of the Pelly cases I carry to work are actually taller than this. So if you've got unusually large shaped luggage or cases you carry on a regular basis, this may become an issue. You can't get them underneath this load space cover. But it is very wide and it does go back a nice long way. So it depends what it's either very practical or completely impractical, depending on what you have to carry, obviously. In the back of here we've got a couple of little load hooks on each side. Load space cover obviously, which comes across, and a couple of little cubby holes either left and right, plus 4 lash down points so you can tie your luggage down should you need to. In the ceiling above there is a light and a pair of ISOFIX anchor points so you can hang child seats over the back seat. Oh yeah, this is quite a cool little thing. This part of the load space cover is fixed in place, so when the tailgate goes up, this goes up with it, and then it's now vertical, and this little red reflector is printed on there, so you've got an extra bit of warning in the dark. Under the floor back here, we've got two very large polystyrene storage areas for whatever you need to carry, and below that we've got a space saver spare wheel, an actual proper wheel with a tyre on it, so if you do get a puncture in the middle of nowhere, in the outback, in the jungle, up a mountain, you can still get home. Because let's face it, those stupid inflaty tyre kit things and pumps and foam, they never work. I've never had a puncture that could be repaired by one, and if you're in the wilderness and you're four-wheel drive and can get you into some tough places, those inflated kits won't get you out, but that will. Oh. I tell you what, these seats are firm. These are Vauxhall level of hardness. They are nice, smooth leather, but they are very, 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 very hard indeed. And that is notable, in fact. And also, they are quite flat on the back as well. This is the first impression I got when I sat in this car, is that you're sat on rather than in the chairs. But it's great though that you do get a leather steering wheel. But it's great though you do get leather seats and you do get a leather steering wheel. So one cancels out the other perhaps. This is a typically Japanesey kind of car in that there's a ton of equipment and most things you can think of are here somewhere, but the buttons to activate them are all generally a little bit plasticky feeling. Helicopter, 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 helicopter. I can hear ye, but I can't see ye. Go away, helicopter. You're very loud. Now you'll notice that I am beautifully illuminated, and that's because we've got a huge sunroof which is wide open above me. It's a two-stage thing, like a two-panel roof. So you push the button once and the front section pops up like that, push the button a second time and the main section retracts into the roof. So you've got a huge area which is fully open over the front seat passengers and half open over the rear seat passengers. So instead of having two panels, you've got one very big one. You also have a pair of individual reading lights, one either side of the mirror, so that both front seat passengers have got something to play with. No such courtesy extended to the rear seat passengers, where there's just one big light in the middle to illuminate all of them. Starting on the driver's door for our walk around of the interior, we've got a, I'm going to say it's a leatherette kind of covering. It's slightly padded at the top, a bit more padded in the middle, and not padded at all at the bottom. A slightly rubbery plastic door handle which is very, very solid, and 4 window switches, so all 4 windows are electric and pillars, which is extremely cool. If only this thing had pop-up headlights, it'd be unbelievably cool, ice cool. It has got full auto on the driver's window, but only on the driver's window, not sadly on the others. And of course you can lock out the rear seat passengers from fiddling with their windows annoyingly, and you have central locking on this large toggle switch just here. You can centrally lock all of the doors, and like on a Toyota, the individual door switches are independent of a central locking switch over here, which I find curious for some reason. Down the bottom you've got a fairly small little door pocket, to be honest. It's like, they call it a map pocket in the old days because that's what it was for, and this isn't much bigger than those old days. Big enough for a nice scraper and a mobile phone, maybe a Mars bar, but not much else. You do have reasonably good sound though. You've got a large mid-range speaker here and a tweeter up the top, so a bit of audio happening there. As I mentioned, the steering wheel is a nice leather wheel, so you do have a nice bit of tactility going on there, which feels good. It's a nice size wheel, it feels good in your hands, so all top marks just there. And then you have 3 stalks on this thing. Lights and indicators on the left, including fog lights on the same stalk as the headlights unusually. On the right hand side, wipers front and rear, and lots of variation on the interval of your flick wipe, which is always good to have. And cruise control here on a 3rd stalk dangling down below the other 2. It's a big chunky switch, as Subarus and their ilk often are, but this is parking lights, because side lights will turn off with the ignition. But if you want to park the car up somewhere, have a little bit of side marker illumination so it doesn't get driven into, flick that switch there, side markers come on for parking with the ignition off. Very, very useful indeed. Now we get to the instrument binnacle at 4 dials. Each one's got a nice kind of satiny metal plastic surround around it, making it look a bit exciting. Speedo front and centre going up to 150 miles an hour. 140 is the highest number though. Cutting into that from behind is your rev counter going up to 8,000 RPM, redlining at over 6,000 RPM, so quite an impressive little bit of revonomics going on there. The rev counter has also got the shift guide light for park, reverse, neutral drive, also indicator for what gear you're in if you're using the manual override Tiptronic-y type thing as well. And finally on the outer edges, looking like they kind of cut into the circles like a Venn diagram or something, heater on the left, fuel gauge on the right. And all in this kind of matte black background with this kind of satiny silver effects and the orange needles, so it looks kind of sporty. This is the sport model after all. Now moving across this big flat dashboard, and look at the size of this T-shelf. This is an epic T-shelf. Oh, it's a little bit low, but oh dear. I thought it was going to be a top scoring T-shelf here, but it's only the front bit can be cool. With a proper mug, with a regular ceramic mug, you could get all the way on there. With a tall portable cup, you're limited as to where you can place it. I'm going to give this is a solid 8.5. This is a good T-shelf. Passenger side T-shelf, less impressive, but is an airbag area anyway, so maybe shouldn't be doing that. We do have proper cup holders down here as well though, so we're in good picnic territory here. I'm impressed so far with this. Now below the T-shelf, 2 big vents in the centre, and I push the little silver button, and this pops open, and you've got a little cubby hole right in the middle of the dashboard. This can be replaced if you want to do so with a more modern double-din stereo unit. This one hasn't had that done, it's still the original little cubby hole. And there's a clock with brightness and display and general other kind of readout type stuff on a little LCD screen just below that. And the main section of the centre console is all this kind of fake silver plastic stuff, which kind of looks good at first glance, but the more you look at it, the more kind of plasticky it looks. This has got the CD player and FM and AM radio, taking up the top half of it and then seamlessly blending into the air conditioning below. Underneath that you've got an ashtray and a lighter, so you've got a 12-volt socket just there. And usefully, moving back past the auto gearbox, we've got a little rubberized cubby hole here, and then rolling back the shutter on this little roll desk compartment, we have, interestingly, a dual height cup holder, so the rear one is less deep than the front one, so if you've got a taller cup, that needs to go at the front. Now next to that, behind the handbrake, both front seats are heated, and they are multi-stage, 4 stages of heating if you want to vary your heating of your buttocks to whatever perfect level of roasting you like, which is a lovely thing to have. And finally we have a nice big sandwich container, so you can put pork pies, scones, bit of cake, a couple of sandwiches, all in here, and the 12-volt socket as well. So very practical little carpeted at the bottom, picnic and cubby hole. And that is the front of the car. Let's go and climb in the pillarless back of the car. Well, oh, mind your chin and your nose on this little pillarless corner, because that's quite a tight opening. The door opens a long way, but the seat comes quite a long way forward. So you need to watch yourself climbing in here. Now that aside, this is a really good sized back seat. This is bordering on BMW 5 Series. Certainly this is more generous knee room than you get in a C-Class or a 3 Series. The seat in the back is actually more comfortable than the seat in the front. It feels a little bit more padded, and the seat back is a good height, and you've got an okay-ish, it's a little bit tight on headroom, but I'm just about okay here. There's 3 seat belts with ISOFIX on at least 2 of them I'm looking at the buttons for. Light in the middle, hand grabs, little net storage pockets on the back of each seat. No door pockets, but there are big speakers and electric windows, obviously, more of the fake silver metal plastic stuff. And the back of the front armrest, we've got a little ashtray at the top and 2 cup holders. Yay! Let's get a cup. We can T-shelf this up in the back as well. We can even use this armrest as a T-shelf, so we're fully sorted for that. In fact, I think we can go double T-shelf in the back, because there is an armrest here. Oops, there's an armrest here as well. No clever sort of storage and boxes and what have you like you have in the C-Class, but you do have a nicely padded elbow rest there, which is actually really nice. If you're going to put sandwiches and things on there, you and your rear seat companion can have a nice afternoon tea here in the back. So this is the 4th generation Legacy. It was revealed to the world in 2003, went on sale in 2004. Now, although most of the cars were built in Subaru's Japanese plants, the American market cars were actually all put together in their American factory in Lafayette in Indiana. Now you could have had a 5-speed manual gearbox in this at this point. I think the 6-speed arrived in 2007. This one though doesn't. It's got the 5-speed automatic. This was Subaru's first 5-speed automatic as it goes. It's relatively smooth and also has the option to do like a Tiptronic-y thing. So you can push it to the right and choose to go. It won't let me go any further because it thinks 3 is high enough. I can pull down to 2 though. It will let me go into first. Oh, it does engine braking as well. That's interesting. But as always, whenever I drive any kind of Tiptronic-y gearbox, after the first 3 changes, I generally get bored and put it back in automatic. Now, I have a feeling we're stuck behind a tractor or a horse at the moment. That's a bicycle. So I'll talk about the visibility for a moment. I'll say the visibility out of this car is absolutely incredible. Although the windscreen is pretty sharply raked and comes from quite a long way ahead of you to fairly close to your forehead. There's a lot of glass in front of you because of that, and also the side windows and those pillarless side windows are also not too high on your shoulder, so you've got a great big goldfish bowl effect all the way around you. And with that huge glass sunroof, it does feel really light and airy in here. I was out doing another review earlier today and I had the camera turned off at the time, but I saw some almighty road rage going on when someone stopped to let a car out of a junction on the left, and the car behind it did not take kindly to it at all. Tried to barge past it, nearly hit an oncoming car while it was doing so. And then the car it was trying to pass was an BMW M car, and it was only like a Toyota Aygo. So the BMW put his foot down and then left him for dead. Oh, it's just a mess, really. And the steering is remarkably light. I mean, it's incredible. Obviously, it's power assisted on a car like this, but it just feels like nothing at all. It's just fingertip light. It doesn't feed back a lot of information, but it's rack and pinion, so it's nice and accurate. And obviously, now as a driver, you are somewhat spoilt. Obviously, you've got your heated seat, but the driver gets electric everything on their seat, so multi-way adjustment. Poor old passenger just has a single pulley handle to flip it backwards, and a single pulley handle to move it backwards and forwards, so slumming it really in the passenger seat. And there was also this little dial here, which apparently came with the car. I'm not sure if it's standard or not. Owner says it was there when she bought it, so I'm going to call it standard. I think it's a tyre pressure monitoring thing, but it seems to have gone off now, so. Now, generally things are very practical and easy to use and friendly really with this car. One thing is slightly irritating though is the immobiliser, which is a little bit intrusive. If you open the car and don't unlock it, if you open the car and then don't turn the engine on basically straight away, you will find it immobilises itself within moments. Now, as I'm currently very familiar with immobilisers that are cutting in and being annoying, this is not a favourite thing of mine with this car. Do you know, I nearly bought one of these things a couple of years ago. First of all, when I did the Bang-O-Nomics with the Mondeo, I considered one very, very seriously indeed. And then when I replaced the Mondeo with the Mercedes, I actually looked at these again. And it was kind of a toss-up between this and a Saab. Had I been sort of staying sort of under the £4,000 mark, then this or like a Saab 9.5 Estate would have been exactly the kind of thing I was looking at. And these are kind of similar to Saab in a way, and Volvo to a certain extent, in that they're kind of cool because they don't want to be cool. It's it is the Crocodile Dundee effect. It's someone who just does what they do really well, makes them kind of cool because they don't want to be cool. There's nothing less cool than trying to be very cool. So if you look at a mega flash Audi with if you look at the most flash Audis, they become a bit gaudy with all the extra bits you can throw on them. There's something like this, and it's actually cool, really cool. Oh, a little starlet. Now, I know I'm not a big fan of an automatic gearbox. I'm on record as saying this virtually every time I open my mouth. But if you're in like a traffic situation like this particular 5-speed is quite relaxing and easy to use. The problem is when this camper van thing turns off the main road, suddenly we can have a beautiful strip of tarmac in front of us, which is going to be begging out to be enjoyed, and that's when it's going to cause a problem. Now, although this car does share many of its components, powertrain and parts of its chassis, I guess, with the Impreza, because it's got the more comfy setup, it's a very nice long distance cruiser. You can just sit in it at a nice comfortable speed and relax into a journey. It's not about going fast. It will go fast quite happily because it's that 2.5 litre Boxer is quite willing to rev. If we get to a bit of de-restricted road in a minute when we're not in a village, well, we'll do a little 0 to 60 test in it. But it's amazing how the nature of this car is so different to that of the Impreza. There's something kind of cool about a powertrain that's just a little bit different from the norm. It makes the car just stand out in its own little interesting way that just makes it a little bit more fun, doesn't it? But the air conditioning on this car is powerful. Even with the fan turned as low as it goes, it still kind of chucks air at you, and it's really frostily cold. I think I forgot to mention on a walk around, there's a little panel down here by my knee which gives you control for the mirrors to adjust them. It's got a little headlamp aim adjustment thingy, so heavy loads in the boot, and you've got dimming for the instruments, and a weirdly placed rear wiper button. But it's slightly soft suspension, it does lean a little bit. Here we go, let's give it some beans. Kick down. It sounds almost like a turbine or a supercharger or something. I know it's not got one, so I'm not quite sure why it would sound that way. The bury your foot and the kick down does happen. And the brakes are very strong, so coming to a 30, so I can welly the brakes, and we are back down to 30, just like that. The auto box does kind of dull the responses of the engine, so it takes a while for the signal to go from pushing your foot down to actually going, which is a shame because the engine seems so willing and so happy to play. Despite the transmission, the car does flow nicely through the bends. The chassis is really good. It's got lots of control. That four-wheel drive grip is epic. I mean, it just kind of pushes from the back as you put your foot down through a corner. It's the kind of car that would be great fun if you had a long road trip that involves some mountains. This would be really good for that. Oh my god, it's a one-wheel. Are they even road legal? And we haven't even talked about SUVs and four-wheel drive estates yet, because let's face it, SUVs are just the least cool, naffest, horriblest, pointlessest thing ever. But an estate car is automatically 10 times cooler than any SUV you care to name. It's just a fact. It goes without saying what I'm going to say anyway. Bang. Estate car cool, SUV not cool. But you throw in four-wheel drive to an estate car, then suddenly we've hit sub-zero. So a rugged four-wheel drive estate car, it's just the best. It may not have all the kind of the luxuries of, say, the Mercedes or a BMW. The seats aren't quite as comfortable. The buttons don't have the same kind of refinement, and there's not the same kind of level of quality of plastics and things. It's a bit tappety and Fisher-Pricey compared to the soft touch and nice heavy-duty rubbery bits that you get in a Merc. But what you actually need is here. It's taking a bit of rough and tumble and abuse. This is the car you need. It's no wonder these things are so popular in Australia. So trudge out to the outback and back in one of these. And let's talk about the badge as well. I do love a car badge with a bit of a story attached to it. Like Alfa Romeo with their Cross of Milan and the Crusader being eaten by a serpent. There's a massive tail going with that. This is the Southern Cross. This is the night sky you would see in the southern hemisphere of the planet. Right, I'm heading back to my car now. So you might get a few interruptions from the sat-nav, which is on the phone on the seat beside me. So let's hope we don't. I don't know what else to say about this car, really. It's just one of the things, it just does everything it sets out to do, it does well. It's an enjoyable thing to drive. It feels kind of tough, it feels rugged, it feels useful and usable. The boot's a good size, even if the load space isn't quite as tall as it could be.
Take the first exit.
Now the thing about Subarus is that they are either the most reliable car you've ever driven and will never give you a second's trouble,
Take the first exit.
or they will be the worst thing in your life and utterly bankrupt you, and there doesn't seem to be anything in between. Modified ones can take incredible power, sort of 1,000 horsepower modifications with the right internals. But on the other hand though, if you watch channels like...
Miles at the roundabout.
Shush.
Take the second exit.
But if you go and watch a channel like Amelia Hartford, she's blown through like a dozen Subaru engines, blowing them one after another with, some modifications, not extreme, but varying degrees of tune. And I don't know what tuning she's done, but she's done lots of abuse, put it that way. Well, I hope you've enjoyed a ride out in a rather fun four-wheel drive estate. I mean, four-wheel drive estates are the ultimate cool thing, aren't they? Well, I'm going to say yes to that question without waiting for your reply. So yes, this is a car that's on my list of things I regret not buying a while ago. Maybe I should have done when I had the chance. Well, still I got the chance. This one's going on eBay tonight apparently, so I literally got the chance tonight. If it was a manual, maybe I'd make a bid. If you've enjoyed this, please do hit like, please hit subscribe, share amongst Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And if you want to support the channel, go and buy a sticker, hit us up on Patreon or join the channel. There's many things you can do to keep these reviews rolling and the tinkering happening. I was going to say talking, but tinkering, talking doesn't really make sense, does it? I'm talking nonsense as usual, but then that's what you subscribe for, really, isn't it? Cool, take care everyone, I'll see you soon.